It's time to realize the problem with social media censorship and to figure out what good solutions are. And the way to do that is to have a discussion about it. Social media censorship prevents good discussion. Where can the discussion be had? Who are the smart people in charge of this discussion? Well, the smart people in charge of the discussion would be the ones who dominate it with the best ideas. That would be me if we had a place to do it. But unfortunately, we don't. So now people are relying upon their legislators, people to write the laws, senators, governors, and people in government. Are they the most suitable candidates for crafting new legislation? Or are they merely the only people that we have who are able to do so? Are we putting our trust in them because they're the only ones who can do anything? Who else can do anything about it? Well, today there was an open discussion meeting, apparently, about freedom of speech and big tech censorship on the internet. This was with Tom Giovannetti, who is by far the least knowledgeable and least intelligent of them all, Bryan Hughes, Justin Hill, and Bartlett Cleveland. Bryan Hughes had some more things to say, and he brought up some things that I started talking about back when nobody was, which was the Pruneyard versus Robbins case. And I brought this up because I know about it, and this is to establish public access areas where the public has free access, and people can come there and deal with them as a marketplace sort of thing, like a shopping mall. Right, the Pruneyard shopping mall, where the petitioners wanted to go and spread their ideas, and for which they were prevented, and for which they actually brought it to court and actually eventually prevailed under the California Constitution, which asserts a positive right of freedom of expression, differentiated from the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, which is over 230 years old, which says what the government is not allowed to do. Right. And so the First Amendment of the California Constitution says we have a right of freedom of expression. And they won that case. And so I've been arguing that since 2015 or 2016. I had been presenting that as, hey, this is one potential angle to argue for freedom of expression, California Constitution. And eventually PragerU picked that up, and they tried to use that, and it wasn't very successful. But they got that from the person who started talking about it related to freedom of speech first, which was me, back in Twitter under my Twitter handle XKIT, which has long since been removed because Twitter censorship. So now there's no archive of that even to find it. Back in 2015, 2016, when PragerU and their attorneys picked up on the idea, called it their own. And now we have Bryan Hughes acting like, well, this is a great idea, Pruneyard versus Robbins. Yes, based on the case that was won, and it was won on the basis of the California Constitution's First Amendment. Right. So here we have a situation of I'm the smartest person in the discussion, and the politicians are the one making the decisions. Now, Bryan Hughes is not so stupid. He did know some things. He was at least aware, being a scholar and a gentleman, of the Pruneyard versus Robbins. Maybe not giving the proper attribution where attribution is due to the people who had made the relevant connection to freedom of speech and expression on the internet. Me. But hey, he at least got some information that was maybe possibly somewhat relevant, although it's kind of been since dropped. It didn't seem to go anywhere with that. But they ended up removing me from that discussion. I was removed from the chat. What did I do so egregious? Well, I can't get access to that chat anymore. It was on Eventbrite, a private platform. So you can try to assert your data portability rights under California Civil Code 1798.100. But good luck with that, because the one enforcing that is the Office of the Attorney General in California. A bunch of unelected, appointed, unaccountable bureaucrats who want to support a leftist agenda. They don't care about your rights. It doesn't matter what the law says. They're going to do what they're going to do. So there's your California Consumer Law, California Consumer Privacy Act, California Privacy Rights Act. It's in the hands of unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats that want to do what they want to do, and they're going to do what they're going to do, and there's nothing that's going to stop them. They're in power. So I'm not going to get back my comments, but I'll tell you what they were. I was providing feedback regarding everything that they were saying, and especially some respectful feedback to Mr. Giovannetti, who was, again, I'll say it here, the least intelligent and least knowledgeable individual in the discussion, where he was saying he was using metaphors. We'll use an analogy. We'll just call the Twitter as like a restaurant, and I'm going in somebody else's kitchen, and I don't have the right to freedom of speech there, so it's a private platform, and they have the right to that. Well, but then we have to consider that a lot of these platforms are using their service for authentication, customer service. If I have a gripe with Southwest Air, how do I do that? I have to go on that platform, right? What if I want to engage in some political Twitter chat discussion? And all of the government officials are using Twitter for that, and that's taking place on that platform. I don't have the right to do that. So we have a partnership between government and private enterprise, and I don't have a right to access the government because it's being run through private enterprise. Now we have a problem. We can see that this is not working effectively. The free market solutions that are coming along, like, yes, I can go over to Parler and talk about the discussion that I'm not allowed to use or engage in on Twitter. It doesn't make any sense, right? This is a very, very fundamental lack of understanding of the problem at hand, right? So Tom Giovannetti was certainly, clearly not within a close enough degree of comprehension to have anything useful to bring to the discussion, other than to straw man those arguments, which he didn't even represent those claims well. He did such a bad job of representing that position that it was almost a straw man for those claims. I can argue those claims much better than Mr. Giovannetti does. So he just did a horrible job. Of course, again, I'm the smartest person in the chat, so they had to ban me. They don't want people who are going to make them look less intelligent. Right. So what are we going to do about this problem of big tech censorship? I'm almost to the point where it's time to give up because, I think, well, if I could get a job at, Facebook or something, I might have access to these people. Maybe there's a chance when Mark Zuckerberg is giving a presentation at Facebook and I'm working at Facebook, that I might have a chance to jump in behind him and shove a fork into his brain. Hey, maybe, that's maybe just some fantasy that I probably won't ever act out because I'm too scared of getting caught. That's really the key. Gets the getting caught that I don't like. But I can't even get a job at Facebook. Why? Why can't I get a job at Facebook? Well, Facebook wants to make sure that they, check your Facebook profile before they're going to interview you. So I passed this initial screen, and then, not getting scheduled for an interview. No, shortlisted, not scheduled. How does that happen? Well, it might happen if Facebook didn't like something on my profile, but why wouldn't they like anything on my profile? Well, what if I talked about reforming age of consent laws? And I started a group for that and made it open and anybody could join it. And then it got reported and banned twice from Facebook. It's now Age of Consent Reform 3, the third incarnation of that group, a group that Facebook detests. They don't like it. Does it violate community guidelines? Who the hell knows? What the fuck do community guidelines mean anyway? They're so vaguely defined, which is another thing I brought up in the chat in this discussion to Mr. Hughes. These community guidelines violate the void for vagueness doctrine. You can't have rules that are so poorly defined that you don't know what they mean. They can be reinterpreted, misinterpreted. The meaning can be changed and different depending on the context, depending how the person feels. It's like a cop coming up to you and saying reckless driving, loitering, disorderly conduct. We need your ID. We need to put your hands behind your back. We'll find a reason to arrest you. And they'll make shit up until they eventually put resisting arrest on there. Bullshit like that. That's what this void for vagueness doctrine is about. That's what we have here in these community standards. These are not laws, right? So what should really be the rules? Should we be allowed to have private companies operating as monopolies, putting other companies like Parler, making sure that they get knocked off the stage, making sure that they have to create a certain set of rules to abide by, right? Where the content delivery network is defined by what? By Amazon now, essentially, which owns half of the internet almost. So we don't have free market here. We have monopolies. And how do you understand this problem? Well, they've achieved market dominance through a number of perverse ways. And the effects of this are non-trivial. Right? These are compromisable platforms that have all access to all data. And they have all control over perception management to control and shape the public opinion. They can be influenced by foreign countries. Who brought that up? Only me. Right. So if, for example, we have just a very simple, seemingly harmless example of, let's say there's a new website like FooTube, FOOTUB, and they want to go into they're building and they're growing and they're in America now, and they go into Germany. Now they're in South Korea, they're in Germany. They want to go to China, and China says, great. We like your very restrictive platform that allows almost nothing, no political content, nothing at all, no opinions. You only allow kitty cat photos and users to type things like, hey, my name is Jane, and simple things like that, so you're super restrictive. We like it because we're communists and we hate freedom of speech. So let's say China says, okay, great, we're going to accept you in, but one condition now. You've got a language selector tool on there, and there's a Taiwanese flag on there, and the users can choose that language. You need to take that off of there. Okay. Well, we don't want that just not in China. You have to remove that from your platform before you can come into our country. So then what happens? Now we have censorship coming from China onto a platform that's affecting the world. We have a worldwide global information war. That's bad. So these companies, platforms, are unsafe. They're not protected. It's not just that they have a bias internally, which they have demonstrated quite clearly they do. They have agendas. They have an interest in dominating the market. They donate hundreds of millions to the D party, right? And of course they want to exert some influence to retain power, right? And if they can do that by being in cahoots and having a revolving door and mutual favoritism and whatever, all kinds of corruption that may occur, things that we might not even be able to conceive with government, well, they'll do so. They'll do what they do to win. So, fiduciary responsibility to dominate the market, even beyond that, to be the richest people and most powerful alive. That's just what they do. They're ruthless. They'll do what they do. So how do you protect them from being harmful to society? How do we protect them from being compromisable? And that's a big question, right? Because if they have all access to data, if you have private messages between two individuals, and then they're monitoring that data and giving it to corporate sponsors, they're giving that information to U.S. government officials, right? Because, well, we need it for safety. We need to protect the children, or we want to stop terrorism. Right, it starts out like that. It always starts out like, stop terrorism and protect the children, national security. General, things that people will say, yes, we definitely need to protect the children, stop terrorism. These are things that people will generally will nod their heads to in agreement. But then, when it comes down to it, it's like, well, okay, so now they're monitoring all of your information. They're selling it to third-party advertisers who are trying to get you to buy shit, you don't have money for and you don't need anyway. Is that really a good thing, or do they have the right to do it? What if they're giving it to foreign governments? Do they have the right to do that? Right, so who brought up the issue of platform security? Only me. Should the platforms be resilient against external compromise, internal compromise, foreign and domestic? Absolutely. Who brought that issue up? Only me. Who was the person banned from the chat? Me. I'm the most knowledgeable person in the chat, in the discussion, and I'm the one who get banned for it. And what is the purpose of that? Well, it's to shut me up, obviously. And why? Because they want to act as if they are the experts. And so I sent message to Mr. Hughes, who seemed to be the most effective communicator and certainly the most knowledgeable of any of them regarding the different aspects of the issue, although not even close to what I know about this, right? So I'm able to take in all the information that everybody's giving, and they're not giving that much, but Tom Hughes is at least giving, there's a drop in the bucket there. Okay, good, Mr. Hughes, fine. So let's email him. Mr. Hughes responded to me to say, thanks for your message, God bless you, which has absolutely nothing to do with the issue at hand. Of the tens of thousands of gods that man has invented, that we're aware of man having invented over the last, tens of millennia. None of them are real, right? Right. We know this to be the case. If you have a personal, mystical belief that you're holding, that's nothing that should have anything to do with anything political, anything related to government at all. So we have this person here who's appealing to illogic, the whole God bless you thing, for his political position, to get people who believe in those nonsensical things to vote for him. These are the people who we are entrusting to protect us from censorship. People who believe in things that aren't real. This is the level of logic and coherence of thought that goes into the legal process for creating laws to protect the individual. Right? The individual. Right? That includes people who are left-handed, men who are too short and have small penises. All kinds of people who have criteria for whom there is no protected category, or for whom there may be a protected category, but that protected category isn't something that people care about. Like it's an age category. Well, okay, boomer. How many times have you heard that one? Right? That's an age discrimination right there, and people do it. It flies. It's perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay to generalize people generationally. That's something that's accepted, even though it's illegal. Fine. I don't believe in protected categories. What I do believe in is treating all people fairly, not appealing to memes or false beliefs and lies and mystical incantations and bullshit, of which Bryan Hughes is propagating so that he can prop himself up as a person in power, not as a champion of freedom and individuality and personal sovereignty, as a person who wants to retain his semblance of some sort of officious person in charge, creating the law, the benevolent ruler. Fuck you, motherfucker. You shut me up in the chat. I'm the smartest person in the discussion, not you.